Jamie, welcome.
Hi, thanks, Zubin. Nice to see you, Gary.
Great to see you, Jamie. We have a lot of mutual friends, and I've heard so many great things, so I'm glad we finally had this serendipity of actually meeting, and thank you for being here. Jamie, well, actually, given the incredible intro we just got from you, I'm gonna go right into something I'm being impatient, even though I love patience. What's with it with these big companies? You've been in all of them.
Yeah.
Why did, is it as simple as like, they're just held accountable to Wall Street dynamics, and so they have to care so much about the 90 days in front of them and at most the year in front of them, that even though there's a million smart people in the building that realize this is all happening, they just couldn't really put the investment into it? Or is it something else that I don't see or others don't see?
It's an and situation. So it's absolutely part of it, and it's a big part of the narrative overall. But the and side of it, I believe, is it's a lot to change, and it's a lot to take on, and it's a lot of capability building. That is
it more religion or is it talent on capability? Because is it more religion?
No, I would harmonize what you said with the need to change and the need to change that fast. That's really hard to do, right? People talk about turning the aircraft carrier and everything else. Like, you're talking about, not just starting over and starting fresh. So you get these small SWAT teams that get built, and then you have to figure out how to integrate those SWAT teams into the broader organization to move and change everything in time. And that's when 18 months flash before your eyes, right? Yeah. It takes a long time. So the intent is usually there and it's understood, but it takes a lot of,
Is it, I mean, even at Vayner, and we're a small company, we have me as the leader, and I'm watching all these meetings and decks and nothing that matters being done. I mean, is it a little bit of that? Is it just like...
Gary, how many times have you tried to say, stop having hour-long meetings, just make them 45 minutes, and then an hour long?
Jimmy, I'm so happy about COVID. I'm converting all our conference rooms into bars so that literally a hangout session, so that just people have their meetings in a Zoom environment. And then people feeling insecure that they haven't been invited. Now you have 19 people, and we're a very, honey kind of culture. So all of a sudden I'm walking by some conference rooms, there's 19 people in there. I'm like, there needs to be 4 people in there.
Yeah, it's the old 2 pizza meeting, right? No one wants to have the 2 pizza meeting anymore. So just think it's a lot of those little things, and they all add up to a huge loss of time.
So Jamie, let's kind of lean in on e-commerce for a moment. You've got e-commerce in your title, something that we don't often see from larger organizations, CPGs. Talk to us about the biggest challenges Fortune 500s are facing as they turn their focus on e-commerce.
So I think it's pretty straightforward, and it seems, and I try to always winnow it down into some sort of 2x2, right? It comes down to unit economics, right? The health and the speed that you can move and the long-term success that you're going to have are still derived by unit economics, which isn't anything that's different than when I started at Wrigley all those years ago. Right? A small pack of gum still has to be profitable for you and for the retailer. And even the conversations you guys were having earlier around DTC, right? I can get up on Shopify real fast and start selling on DTC, but if it's a $2 can of pineapples, that's not going to do anything for me and for my business long term. So you've got to understand your value proposition, what consumers are willing to invest in the products that you have, as well as how you're going to fulfill that and everything on the back end all the way through the process. And I think those challenges, there was a lot of understanding of those types of revenue management challenges at organizations right before we got to a point when the internet and e-commerce started to take off. And now you have to layer all that back into channel strategy and everything else. So it's complicated, and then you move it at a slower pace than you might like, Gary and Zubin. And it just takes a while for a lot of companies.
And when you're talking about unit economics, obviously, like you go to the store, you buy one can of Dole pineapple, as you mentioned. What are you doing or thinking around in terms of packaging for direct to consumer? So perhaps they're not buying one, they're able to buy multiple Dole products, they're able to buy packs. What are you doing differently from that perspective, from a merchandising standpoint online?
So we're re-engineering it now because as a lot of people have talked, click and collect has picked up, right? So your unit economics in a grocery environment start to get spread across that whole basket. And without it's serviced through an Instacart or serviced through other, Walmart's own click and collect, their OPD, those unit economics need to get spread across, right? So we're in the process right now of rethinking how we re-engineer portions of our portfolio to serve this environment. You know, you've got the club pack size, right? And bigger sizes, more dollars to spread to fulfill shipments. But then you've also got this middle person operation where you're simply bagging and putting it up front and dropping it off in somebody's car. So I think all the different lanes by which product goes from shelf to consumer, or even you back it up, it goes from manufacturer to warehouse to the store. Like those layers all need to be sorted out, and you can do it fairly quickly, but you have to be very purposeful and very direct in what you're trying to do, and then balance all the different aspects of the traditional environment against that as you move forward. So it's tricky.
Jimmy, talk to us about your new campaign and its purpose-driven theme.
Sure. So, you know, Dole is an organization that is approximately 170 years old, so it's not new, right? And it's something that a lot of people have affinity for globally around the world. The purpose and the promise that Dole has decided to let everyone know about isn't really a change in its message. It's just that we're actually going to raise it up and speak more about it. So there's a campaign around we deserve the world we live in, but our children don't, right? And so that's the establishment of our promise to the world, right? Dole is a very global organization. And, you know, things along the lines of no processed sugar, no fruit waste, right? Which is huge, which we could, you know, knock 25% of hunger off the map if we stop wasting all the food that's wasted out there. And then access, and I would call, twist the language a little, the democratization of health and wellness, right? So again, we're not charging a heck of a lot. We're not a very large value added good in the marketplace, even though we're branded. And it's really around making access to more healthy snacking choices around the world.
Jamie, what about your personal predictions for the reaction by the Fortune 500 landscape, since you have so much contacts post-COVID? Is it your prediction that, and we're talking in general terms here, that everybody will go back? Will they be hyped the first 6 months, but then they'll go back to the opening rant I had of like, when it's 1%, you know, and CVS needs this, or, you know, Hudson News for back to gum needs that, or Walmart, or Costco, or, you know, thoughts?
I think we've made a large pivot, and I'm just not sure how fast it'll continue to run. So the idea, you know, I'm in the Northeast. When COVID started, it was intense here. In fact, I have no power here in New Jersey right now. I'm just not in my house. So yep. The fact was Instacart, who folks were talking about earlier, couldn't service anybody in the Northeast, right? And so we couldn't get Instacart, which is what I've been doing for a long time. And, you know, then we had to go direct. We had to go into the store while everybody else was getting all their groceries on the flip side. The other day, my wife came home and she said, I'm done. Like, I went into the store for 2 hours. I can't do that anymore, right? And while it's an N of one and it's always dangerous, like, we're seeing the same thing in the data. We are seeing a acceleration in July of more sales happening online than there were in June. And that's a testament, because there's still the ability to go push a cart through a Walmart all the way around the country right now. It's just more people are finding the simplicity, and that's where I don't think it's going to go away. So we're feeding that while we're trying to reinvent our portfolio to be ready for it for the long term, because we're seeing the household acquisition happen. And I'm sure a lot of other people are, from talking to people in the industry. But now it's about, so what do we do with that, right? We've made our mark with consumers and with shoppers. Where does it go from here? I don't think we're turning back. We're not going to drop back down to 10% penetration of online from a grocery standpoint. We're only going to go higher at this point. Self-serving, maybe a little bit, but, you know, I just don't see it happening.
Jenny, one of the things that Gary talks about quite often that I think is really compelling and people can take a lot from is the role of brand across the funnel and not just top of funnel. And the impact that you can have bottom of funnel, where everybody else is trying to sell. You can also introduce brand in that bottom of the funnel area. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you're doing that and how you consider bottom of the funnel?
Yeah, it's an active use case right now, what we're trying to sort through. So we're starting to talk about our promise. We have, if you want to call them like pack level communication plans around fruit bowls, healthy snacking during whatever back to school looks like right now. And then I've got the conversion element and how all those pieces need to start to tie and tether together in order to deliver that, right? So we're looking at how do we mesh together language, communication, and the visual identity of the brand in a way that, for us at least, we've never been tasked with to do, right? So we have to determine what that looks like. And in order to do that, we're talking about connected commerce, right? No matter where your touch point is, every platform from, Instagram and frictionless commerce, everybody wants that. They want to just swipe once, be done, and have stuff show up at their door. But we have to impart the brand, right? We have to leave the message of who we are and what we stand for in that consumer journey. And so it really starts to become a tethering of all those different pieces, because ultimately I do know what works from a conversion standpoint, right? Price value equations, trusting that heritage, product reviews, all those good things that are just part of the core DNA of e-commerce have to be there. But now we have so short of a period of time from when they might see something to want to add it to a list or discover it and get it in their cart. We not only need to figure out a way to show that, be that, but measure it as well. And the measurement side is the hardest thing in our universe.
It's incredible. And then for an organization like Dole, that's so kind of true in its principles and its purpose-driven effort and impact, what is it like for an organization like yours that's always had or historically had kind of that middleman between you and the customer, to now be able to cultivate that direct relationship with the customer? How does that impact what you're doing creatively, what your internal organization looks like from a marketing standpoint? What impact does that have?
I might have to come back on episode 12 and let you know a little bit more about it. But we are like, that's the known unknown of how we're going to go. And I think, I was actually taking some notes when I was listening to Neil, and Crystal was really echoing the same topics there of listening to your consumer, right? So we're going to have a better chance right now to listen to our consumer, the people who have our products in their households, if they're families, if they're not families, like, what does that mean for them? And do they come back? And if they don't come back, can we figure out why? That, our purpose, we know will resonate. It's hard not to resonate right now with the state of affairs, even pre-COVID. It's just the way of the world right now. We just have a message that's perfectly fit for that. But what we have to do is determine how do those pieces start to fit together, and then listen. And when we do listen, be able to adjust and react and change, what it is that we're delivering from a value proposition standpoint. And I think that's what's new for us. And that's what's new when you have a traditional grocery organization that is moving itself this much closer to the consumer, enabled through e-commerce and through digital activation.
Amazing. Gary, any final thoughts?
No, I think for me, this one was like kind of one of the more important ones, because I've spent the last 10 years of my life building an organization that has desperate ambition to try to help the biggest organizations in the world instill some of that speed and things of that nature. And I do think this is a watershed moment that may trickle into many other areas as we get into voice and we get into 5G's impact and just, there's just so much. Yeah. And it's exciting to have leaders like Jamie kind of like communicate about it and put some, perspective. There's a lot of people watching right now who can associate a lot more with Jamie than they can with you or I, Zubin. And so I just appreciate your time, Jamie. And if there's anything we can be a help of, officially or unofficially, we're always here.
I appreciate that, Gary. Zubin, great to meet you, man. Thank you.
Likewise. Thanks, Jamie.
Take care.